I feel like I've owed folks a stream for a while now. Let me make sure because it's been a minute. All right. According to according to my streaming software, everything looks good. So let's hope they are good. Okay. Hey, Krister. So yeah, it's been a minute. It's been a minute since I've had a stream on here for no reason, really. No reasons really. But yeah, it's been too long, and I should have. I didn't get one done on Friday. I was kind of hoping to, and it didn't happen. So I figured I'd do one today. And I'm on Reddit because I haven't had time to really do much more researching. And of course, none of you lot have sent me any articles or anything, so I'm forced to go by the seat of my pants. Hey, Mayor Trumpet. Yes, I am live. Back from Studio B, which I didn't actually do anything in Studio B, but had a nice weekend. Visited with some family. Went to a museum in not really northern Mass, in Massachusetts. In where are we? Western Mass. It's a really cool museum. I went on a hike yesterday, and then we kind of had to pack everything up and then made the drive home. And it wasn't even a terrible drive home, which oftentimes coming back to the city, especially, I'm really always on the weekends. You know, we're not the only ones who are trying to get out of the city for the weekend. And so there's always a lot of traffic usually coming back. But actually, this wasn't too bad. Pretty good. Krister says, am I aware that Lemmy is shutting down? I have to look. You know, what's funny is a long time ago, I lost my Lemmy password. And for whatever reason, I could not get revalidated to get in. But yeah, Chris, I actually saw your post on Lemmy. So I got to figure it out. There were other people running OSR Lemmy type stuff. So I have to look into it. I'm happy to go. If you have a good one, if you've done the research and have one to go to, or I could post another one up, I suppose. But yeah, I heard about that. I just don't really know what to do about it. And I probably need to look and see if I can get access to my account again to migrate it because I couldn't get in and I was really frustrated. Oh, there's one called TTRPG Network. Yeah, I could try that. Gotta see what's going on with that. Okay. Oh, let's see. Let's find some stuff. Oh, by the way, I just, as in literally moments ago, I posted on Patreon and I put it up on itch. I made some hex. Let me see. Some hex map backgrounds. I'll just quickly show them because why not? There's 3 of them I have. Let me do this in order, I guess. So this is one. Basically, the idea behind this is I don't like, everyone loves hex flowers, but what I have not appreciated about hex flowers is the fact that they're not. I like to dice things out. I love to see what the dice say and roll out. And if you notice in a hex flower, you end up with an odd number of hexes inside, which means it's a real pain. Maybe there's some mathematical way to get so you can get even. If you want to roll and get a you want to roll and get anywhere. Yeah, these are public use. I mean, if you they're licensed via CC, Creative Commons by 4.0 deed. It's a couple of bucks for 3 of these. So basically what I did was I'd been trying to figure out, and I'm not I was going to say, what is a statistician, or I don't even know I'm not sure what the right one to know how to do it in some other way. So for this one, it's a hex flower. You'll notice the bottom hex is cut off, and that's so you actually end up with a clean 66 number of options, which means you can roll a d66 and get get one. And just because it doesn't really make sense to me to go in rows, because you don't end up when you do this as a rectangle, you end up with rows and columns that are even, so you can just kind of go around. But this, it won't end up neatly. So if you're using a D6 and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it ends up looping one way or another. So I ended up deciding to go in a spiral. So the one thing you can kind of know is, okay, if you get 11, you're in the middle, and then you kind of go looping around, and it just kind of goes around, around like that, and it just loop around. So there's that one. And then this one is kind of a combo of what I've already been doing. So then we have this, which is a rectangle that's made up of smaller versions of these cut off hex flowers. So similarly, now, if you wanted, you could build a region with these, and then you could roll 1 for these region hex maps. And then you've got the last one, which is the area hex map inside. So it's up on itch. It is not Friday. If they're up on itch for $3, you can actually get them on Patreon for $3. Or if you become a patron, you can get them for nothing. So there you go. But I just did them, so I figured I would share those because I got to promote myself somewhere, and this is my stream, darn it. So if anybody's going to advertise on my stream, it might as well be me. All right, that's that. I'll put in a link. To, let me see. Let me find the link. I'm going to go full advert. I might as well do it. How fast can I search myself up on? Oh, yeah. It's called Handy Dandy Hex Map Templates. Is what it's called. So, let's see. Hex map templates. And I'll probably put these up on drive-through as well at some point. But, itch is... I think I've said this before. If you supporting a creator and you want to buy something and they have it on itch and drive-through, buy it on itch. Drive-through, just... They force you to put the same price, but they take a larger cut. Unfortunately, itch doesn't have a way of... Itch, as far as I know, does not have any kind of affiliate program. So people like me, when we're trying to make a couple of bucks doing YouTube stuff, it's much more convenient for us. I include myself to say, go to drive-through because, if you use my affiliate in drive-through, we get a couple of bits. The creator gets some. But ultimately, I wish itch had something because ultimately, drive-through is just not as good a deal. Though it probably balances itself out in the fact that just natively you just get a lot more traffic to drive-through than itch. But anyway, it is what it is. I am a corporate shill to myself, Ian. Exactly. All right. So let's see what we've got here. Okay, Hack Master Review. I don't know enough about that. All right. And like always, I would prefer to get articles and things from you folks, but nobody sends me anything. So like I said, I have to go do this instead. And I just didn't have enough time to go research stuff to pull. So you feel free to shout out in the chat. If you see something that I have glanced over for whatever reason, this might be good. So this is called Solo Play. Help. I'm here to help the people. I'm not a big solo player, though. I'm going to start up a solo. I'm going to start up some stuff. And one of the things I'm going to start up is a solo thing. I'm probably going to make a third channel for that with just me playing stuff. So look out for that. Fred asked if I contacted Chris Clark of Inner City Games. Well, he sent me an email and I responded to him. I need to go back and actually respond to another email. We did make contact. Thanks for the intro, Fred. Yes, though he's going. So we could take it offline, or you can hit me up separately. But I told him he should figure out a way to get to Claricon if he's in that region of Canada, which it seems like he is, because it's just good in general. And we could maybe meet up in person, but I did. Thanks. Oh, Ian pulled a neat looking. Ian, if you post it in the Discord, I can probably grab it from there since I have Discord up in a window, and I know you're on the Discord, so I can say that. Okay, so this one is Solo Play. This is posted by King Trash Can. Brian asks, what system am I going to solo? I'm probably going to solo my own thing that I keep trying to finish and keep getting backed out. So I based on my D6 dice pool, I have I feel like some pretty good ideas, but I have trouble, procrastination and everything. My idea is that by solo playing it, just starting to kind of play it that way, it'll encourage me to get everything written down and a chance to kind of test it as I go along. So it'll be kind of a D6 dice pool, kind of based on my do anything D6 stuff with some extra rules, extra structure. And then I'll get to kind of play around with some of the things that I don't necessarily have absolutely crystallized yet. Perfect launch time for Father's Day? Oh man, I wish. Okay. Solo play posted by King Trashcan on the OSR subreddit 4 hours ago. Interested in solo play. They've crept back through the last few posts here about it. They have my rule set, which is OSC Advanced, their Oracle, which is the old school revival solo role-playing guide, and basically everything else they think they need. They just have a general question. So right out of the gate, they understand that they can kind of do just whatever the heck they feel like. Flex, add or discard anything, as they're only cheating themselves at the end of the day. But are there any generally unbreakable rules for solo OSR play? Like if they do X, they're essentially just rolling dice to waste time, or not really playing the game so much as participating in an interactive creative writing session. I mean, I think part of solo play is kind of interactive creating writing sessions, so I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. To explain real quick, they figured they'd make a party of first level PCs, spread of the base classes, then play normal hiring retainers or hirelings and go delve some dungeons. Note, they know they're being vague. This is tentatively dipping their toes into the OSC BX play. They've been playing other versions since 3.5, but the bulk of their play has been with 5e, with a constant weekly group for almost 6 years. I think you got to embrace all the aspects of playing solo. And I think as somebody mentioned, I forget, they were responding to a different video, but with solo, there's Ian posted, okay, great. After I finish this article, Ian, thanks. I'll check out those. I think with solo play, you really have to embrace everything. You're not just a player. And I don't care what oracle you're using. There's no oracle that's going to be able to you're going to have to put on the dungeon master's cap a couple of times just to make decisions. Even asking, it's not even so much there's the decisions, but there's also even asking the oracle questions and a long time ago, it feels like a long time ago, probably hasn't been this long, when I did some Dragonbane solo, there was, I was even struggling a little bit with myself. I'm like, well, what questions do I ask the oracle? Because how I phrase the questions is going to play, even though I might be taking exactly what the oracle gives me, and I'm not, I'm going to play the dice as they lay, so to speak. Even just how you ask a question and what questions you ask of an oracle are going to shade how things play. And there's really no way around that. It doesn't matter, what tool you're using. You just embrace that. Embrace the fact that, yeah, I'm playing a little bit of Dungeon Master. I'm playing a player. I'm also playing a little bit like all the description you're going to add is going to be you. So yes, you are going to be just creative writing if you want to. If you want to roll out, have a mass battle, let's say, at some point, and you want to dice it out quickly, and then you want to dig into what do those results mean, yeah, that's creative writing. Or if you wanted to do, I don't know, you're rolling dice and just deciding, oh, what is my next quest? And I'm rolling dice and okay, it's this, but you want to post it on a blog or somewhere just for your own notes, and you don't want to write it up just like that. You want to kind of role play it out a bit. Then it's going to be creative writing, unless you're speaking it, which I guess would be creative speaking. So I think you just need to embrace the fact that solo play is a bit of all that stuff, and that's just what it is. It's its own kind of game, and it's similar in some ways to a lot of times you see solo rules for board game. I love board games with solo rules because oftentimes I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to play a board game with my family or friends, and they may not like what I like and whatever. So having solo rules is great, but oftentimes the solo rules they work a little bit differently. You generally have to play for the computer a little bit. Some of them have really Oracle type systems and different rules, but ultimately there will be choices about, well, they could go to A, they could go to B, or this or that, or it's not clear, or just whatever. You still have to do that kind of play for the opponent that obviously you don't have to do when you're playing by yourself. And so you just kind of accept that, hey, if I want to play solo, this is kind of how solo works. Or sometimes with games, they don't have a bot, so people will do kind of what they call multi-handed solo, where they'll play more than one player. So if you had, let's say, a pandemic style game or just any kind of co-op game, maybe the co-op game on the box says from 2 to 4 players co-op, and you go, great, well, I'm going to play by myself, but I'm going to play 2 players, and that therefore I can play this solo. And so it's everything's a little bit different. I think instead of getting caught up on what solo is, or what the rules if you're playing with a group would be, and saying I'm going to play solo, but I'm only going to play doing what I would do with the group. Just say, you know what, it is a little bit different. It's kind of its own beast, so I'll treat it as such. Other than that, I think you can probably kind of figure out, I think, what you want to do. What you want to do when you want to do it. I know, Krista, you're a big solo player. I know some other ones. If you guys got some solo tips, but I think it can be fun. I think if you're, I guess the thing is ultimately you have to set your expectations differently. Solo play, I think, can be very rewarding. It can be a lot of fun, but it is not the same as playing with a group. You don't have any other players. You don't have a GM. There's just a lot of stuff you don't have. You do have a lot of other things like absolute control over everything, whether you want it or not. So you got to kind of treat it as its own thing. Don't look at solo play like it's going to be exactly like a multi-person regular role-playing game is going to be. And of course, don't do the reverse. If you're just playing solo and you go to play with a group, understand they're not going to be the same. That's all I got with that. We can go back. Okay, let's see I'm just checking here to see. All right, we got a couple of articles. All right, let's see. I'm just going to, will this open up in the right? It did. All right, these are courtesy of friend of the channel, Ian. All right. We'll just go right to left. I will post this one in. This is, it's crafting. Ian, you just went right for my bane. It's not that I really hate, well, I kind of do hate crafting in role-playing games. Sorry. I'm not a crafter. I don't hate folks for enjoying it, but man, I'm not a fan of crafting. All right, so there's the easiest tabletop role-playing game crafting system you'll ever use and actually enjoy. This is posted on the Domain of Many Things by Jimmy Jimmy, posted by Jimmy. Maybe I'll enjoy. I mean, I don't know. I guess I just get back in that mode. Like for me, and I'll just say this before I get this crafting article. I think it's just kind of just how I came. I don't know. I don't want to say it's how I came, like my generation. I don't think it's true. I think a lot of people of my generational ilk, like crafting. But I just think of the magic things like Excalibur, or I don't know, like the One Ring, or something like that. Like they're not just something like, oh, I'm adventuring, and then I'm just going to spend 5 minutes every day or over a week, and I've just created the One Ring. Haha. It's like I don't like it. I want those things to be like these super special things, and I'm sure there are ways to get to where you could have both, where you could have things like the One Ring, and then I get it, like it's the +1 sword. Like I know it's. I'm not saying that even my entire argument is super buttoned down and has no holes in it, but I don't know. Just that I think the MMO, I feel like crafting is, and I'm sure someone could say, no, in Dungeon Magazine or Dragon Magazine in 1978, they talked about crafting. Fine. But I do feel like that's a thing that kind of rose out of the MMO RPGs with all the like going there and crafting a bunch of crud together, and just don't love it. Just don't love it. Ian says, I feel like eventually in every group someone asks, can I make a potion, or can I make my sword magical? Yeah, and I don't mind that, but that to me, crafting isn't really where you go for that, right? I mean, maybe you could say potions are crafting, but to me, potions like scrolls really, I think, could be very simple. The making a sword magical, to me, that wouldn't be a crafting thing. That would probably be what do you do with your sword to make it magical? That sort of let's get into diegetic adventuring. Like, oh, you want to, for example, in the game I play in, I have a paladin who's getting close to 8th level, and one of the last things is my paladin can do, or is really on their bucket list of things to do, is to make a holy sword, or find or make a holy sword. Now, I could find a holy sword, or I could make a holy sword. To make a holy sword, I have to take my sword, I have to go down into hell, and I have to, in single combat, I have to slay a demon with it. That's how I make a holy sword. That's what I want. I don't want, I'm going to take 5 points in blacksmithing and I know I'm mocking it a little bit, and I apologize for that. But I don't want to do that. I want that. I want, like, send me on a mission. You know, like, you know, you want to make your sword magical? Go dip it in the blood of a still living Titan and you will make it magical. Like, that's what I want. The potions thing, to me, it's different. That can just be, you know, that kind of thing, like, oh, make a little magical something. It hits differently because, one, it's easy. It doesn't, not easy, but it's their consumables, and, you know, I have their, you know, I got levels. But I'm also playing, most of the games that I run do not have, like, the magic shop. There's no healing potions running around. I don't have that stuff either. So, you know, but I if someone wanted to make potions, I wouldn't be super averse to it, depending on kind of what they would do. But it probably wouldn't be like the simple thing kind of thing. Okay, let's get back to this article. Enough of my editorializing. So Jimmy, easiest TTRPG crafting system you'll ever use and actually enjoy. Hey, how would you like our new fancy author picture? Okay, I don't care about that part. All right, they had the flu. Sorry about that. All right, why don't you see many crafting rules? Crafting is one of the most tragically underbaked aspects of many TTRPGs. Take 5e, for example. Unless I'm much mistaken, all characters get a starting proficiency with some kind of professional gear, like alchemy, leatherworking, or brewing. But then there's no supporting procedure for actually using these skills to craft things outside of things like Kibbles' crafting guide. I guess one of the reasons for this would be that crafting can easily become complicated. From a simulation perspective, I can see that very clearly. There's a number of hairy things to consider. Everything would have reagents to create it. Everything has a recipe. Everything has a recipe of reagents. Reagents would come in different volumes and quantities. Some reagents would serve as a good enough proxy for another, like stream water or lake water. Inventories would get out of hand. Already it's seeming overwhelming, and though I'm quite sure that there's a subset of you rubbing your hands together at the notion, I'm personally on the verge of a hernia thinking about this level of codified granularity. Let's see. Krister says, just post an article. Oh, to the forum. Okay, cool. Oh, about why they like. Nice. Appreciate it, Krister. I will check that out next. So on this first part, I tend to agree with this. It's actually not my main thing. I don't mind obviously coming up with the recipes is fine. But I think the part of my problem is you're not just crafting ordinary things and this gets into another thing I don't particularly love, but if you had things like equipment wearing and tearing, which some systems have, you know, the open world Zelda games where you're just using stuff and it's just degrading all the time. If you had that, and then you could have your leatherworking or smithing or some of these different tools and skills could be used to revitalize equipment. So it's like, oh, my leather armor's coming apart, but I've got leatherworking, so I can spend a week in the village, and instead of having to buy new armor, I can repair it. I mean, you got something to that. I think my thing is it ends up being like, that's not what people care about, or even about, say, the role-playing aspect. If I was a leather worker, so I can do that, ends up being more about making magic items all the time. And I think just because of the pace of games, it's not... Adventurers aren't spending a lot of time, you know, getting mentored in their skill. They just got this flat skill, and then they're not spending out, and no one wants to spend weeks and weeks and weeks to do the thing. So it ends up being like, oh, look, in the campfire overnight, I made magic armor. And I just detest. Okay, getting back to it. Why should we even bother with crafting? So then why even hint at crafting in a game if it's not developed? What are the benefits of crafting? Well, actually, a good crafting system supports play in a number of ways. Questing fodder. Travel around the land to collect the necessary reagents to make a powerful weapon or potion or armor. Game economy. Weapons and armor can be damaged, so crafting can be used to repair stuff. Player creativity. I wish we had a potion of invisibility so we could get past a giant spider. Oh, wait, we could make one. Player survivability. We can cook what we hunt to give us temporary bonuses. Yeah, so some of the stuff I just don't like. I'm not a huge fan of. I know people love the dungeon meshy, that kind of thing. Like, oh, we're going to eat all kinds of stuff and get powers. I'm not really... I don't know. I feel like that stuff gets... Maybe I just need to play in a game that does it. I just feel that stuff gets cheesy and it just becomes the kind of a cheat. I think there's lots of player creativity, and I actually don't find that making the potion of invisibility is that creative. Look at my spell sheet. I have invisibility. Gee, if I make a potion of that, I could make 5 potions and we can all be invisible. That actually is not all that creative to me. What's more creative is we have 5 people, one person become invisible. So how did that party and that one invisible person get past the giant spider? That to me is the more creative option. So I feel like, not that there isn't creativity in making stuff, but we're not doing the kind of MacGyvering makery that to me is all that creative, what we're really just doing is transferring spells to consumables. So I have a spell that would do the trick, so you just make it for everybody or cast it 5 times. I'm sorry, that does not read to me. It's like, oh, the creativity. The creativity to me is you have really limited resources or limited people with those resources, limited stuff. You got one coil of rope and you got this and you got that. How can you take these disparate pieces and turn it into some kind of Rube Goldberg mechanism? That's where, for me, the creativity lies. Game economy, yeah, weapons and armor can be damaged. I don't tend to love that because it gets more trackery of things. And here's the other thing. And this person, it feels like they're aiming more towards 5e, and I'm not sure it makes a difference, but the problem with a lot of this stuff is that even with what I was saying before, was they said, oh, damaging. But what happens is, and what I didn't mention is the big thing that undermines this is just the general economy of the game. Stuff is so cheap that after a little while, the idea that you might need, assuming you don't have magical armor, let's say, if you had to replace your leather armor after every foray into the dungeon, it's just not that much of a drain. Unless you're on some really long expedition where you're not going to get back to town. A, you're not going to be able to get back to town. B, you're not going to find some suitable replacement armor or something for you. Then the 20 gold or silver, whatever it is that your leather armor costs, it's just, you just toss that. After a little bit, you're going to have silver and gold coming out your butt. You can, it's just like a little tax. It doesn't matter anymore. So you're quickly going to outstrip the need to use your crafting on mundane stuff. So then it really just get back to, well, then it's just going to be this focus on making magic stuff. And like I said, this is just a personal taste thing, but I just don't, I like that stuff to be like, no, you need to be a master. You need to be somebody who spends all day crafting. You know, the dwarven craftsman who made the doors of Durin, whatever, that's all that guy did for hundreds of years. So no, you're not doing it by spending a week at home or for spending 5 minutes a night at the campfire. It's like, sorry, just for me, it just doesn't match up. But I know for other people it does. So I'm just being old non-crafting man yelling at clouds. All right, having a little bit of a late afternoon, a little cappuccino for the working man. Jimmy, surely there must be a better way. You darn tootin' there is. This is how I approach crafting in my game without making it something overly complicated. My fragile, flu-ridden geriatric millennial brain. All right, ingredients. To start with, I make heavy use of abstraction. In fact, all possible types of crafting components that someone might gather, I've condensed down into D6 reagents to reduce bookkeeping and to keep it in line with the most excellent Pips inventory system. All right, that's something else. As GM, if you're ever put on the spot for how to make a given potion, damn those pesky players with their questions, roll a few times on this table or just pick what seems logical. The more valuable the end product is, the more reagents it requires. So here's got a table of some examples. Stinky herbs, gooey bits, mecha widgets, raw chunks, beastie meats, lumpy fluids. All right, fine. And for example, lumpy fluids might be blood, venom, tears, swamp water. Beastie meats might be the edible meats from a creature. Raw chunks, some unrefined, something like ore or wood. Okay. Ian says it's the mouse ritter system of wear and tear. Oh, okay. I'll have to check it. I really haven't. I need to go and read. I've looked at mouse ritter for a couple of things very specifically, but I haven't looked at the whole system, so I probably need to go back to that. It's important that you're upfront with the players where they might find certain things. For example, if the recipe for a magic potion calls for lumpy fluids and the players haven't yet found any, you might suggest a visit to the local swamp or going on a zombie killing spree for their gooey bits. So I'd say we're just saying lumpy fluids. I see. Okay, so any lumpy fluid will do. I don't love that either, to be honest. I'd rather get specific, even if it's just a jokey way that D&D did classically, where they would say, for this you need I forget, what was it? What spell had that kind of subtle call out to farting? It was like, oh, you need to have beans to make like some kind of gust. You need beans was one of the whatever reagents, ingredients, whatever. It was like they would have kind of fun with it. I'd like to be specific. If someone's like, I want to make a potion of invisibility, what is it needed? I don't want it to just be like goop, and anywhere you get goop will do. It's like, no, I don't mind this list as a shorthand for me, the GM, to then think about, okay, it needs lumpy fluids and what those lumpy fluids might be, but I wouldn't want it to just be any lumpy fluids. No, I like some I want some specificity there. And then once the players learn that, then they can try to harvest or gather or whatever more of it. All right, so anyway, so on to the next thing, which is gathering. Gathering reagents slots nicely into the kinds of activities players like to undertake during travel or rest, such as hunting for dinner or gathering herbs. If Orban the Barbarian wants to hunt that deer and succeeds, his reward will be beastie meats. Additionally, borrowing heavily from video games, I like to give out these crafting items as loot too for when characters are rifling through bodies or raiding barrels and chests. Kill the beholder, you find some gooey bits. When it comes to abstraction like this, you need to let go of stressing over details. Zombie blood is just as good as swamp water when it comes to lumpy fluids. If your players can handle the abstraction of rolling dice and swing a sword, then this should be within reach too. It's not the abstracting part I dislike. I like the specificity. To me, it's more fun and cool. And I think at that point, you're kind of abstracting away some of the things that I think is cool. And it's also that world building of, well, why does, I don't know, zombie goo help with invisibility? Like, what does it mean? I want, and in fact, I would say even beyond that, then not only for yourself or for your players, they may be able to invent their own things by looking at the ingredients for something that they understand. So a player may look at it and say, well, we need zombie goo and this or that to make invisibility. Well, what happens if I have another potion for, I don't know, for silence that uses whatever, Batwing? What happens if I combine Batwing and zombie goo and something else? Like maybe I can make up my own effect. That to me is cool. And you don't get that when you just abstract it away too much. So I actually like the detail, and I wouldn't want to get rid of it. I feel like that's throwing away the baby with the bathwater a little bit. There are a lot of the other steps I'm fine to abstract, but actually that I think I'd be specific. And I can't imagine stuff comes up all that often. So if it's, this could be something where they have to research or whatever. So I feel like you could take the time. I think you'd have the time as a GM to come up with some specifics and figure that out. So why not do that? Anyhow, the next is processing. So your mighty player characters know what they want, what they need, and they've collected everything together. Now we need to make the thing. For me, this is, again, a simple solution. If the player is trained in the skill and has the gear and free time, such as during a rest, then they succeed in making the thing. No roll or complicated nonsense required. I mean, sure, for some things you might want to ham it up, such as brewing a potion under the light of the full moon, but for most things, it doesn't need to be more complicated than ensuring that characters have the skill, equipment, and time. Failing these requirements, the players can make use of artisans in town, such as blacksmiths to make them suits of armor and swords, or witches to brew potions. Maybe there's a legendary wizard that lives somewhere in the wilds who can make magical items for the right price and ingredients. Now, this I like. I'm happy with, like, hey, we got to find the legendary dwarven blacksmith to do a thing, and then they could do that, because that fits in my model of what to make these really awesome, magical, powerful items. And it is adventuring fodder. But then, of course, if you're doing that, then you don't really need the steps before that. Unless, I mean, you could have, I guess, the dwarven legendary smith could say, well, I'm going to need gooey bits, lumpy bits, meats, whatever. But again, I think at that point, I'd want to make it specific and not just anything. Ian says, I think there definitely needs to be a defined time investment. Yeah, I mean, he's kind of glazing over or just bypassing, well, you should have this much time, buddy. Yeah, I think you could have some rules. You can roll some dice. I mean, there's you probably got to, you want. I would say, like, okay, what is it? Is it a mundane? What is the kind of desired magical bonus? I'd also want to put that you can't. It's not just time, because I don't think that if you're a level 1 character that you could make more than. I think that maybe what you could make is dependent on your level. So if you're level 1, you're making mundane items. That's all you can make. And if I was going to, I always I don't know why, I always kind of default to that 4 and 8 as these kind of, what you call it, gateway levels. I just like it from OD&D, hero, superhero. So, 4th level, maybe you can make magic up to +2. And then 8th level, you can make magic up to +4, maybe. And that would be it, maybe even less than that. And I'm not even sure about the truly legendary stuff like Vorpal swords and things like that. And you can even combine that. Well, it's like, well, you can do some stuff in the lab, but you're also going to have to go do something like again, in the game, my paladin's going to have to take a sword that they like. If they want to make it a holy sword, they're going to have to go down and do this dangerous thing. Even at 7th level or 8th level, whenever I do it, it's going to be dangerous. No absolute sense of, no guarantee of success or even of survival. And I like that too. So I definitely want to keep that. Conclusion, told you I like to keep it simple, didn't I? Find this hits the sweet spot of letting players do crafty stuff that they're itching for without slowing down the game or creating a boatload of accounting. Win. I mean, I guess ours is everybody itching for creating stuff. And I know that, in games that I've run in, I've played in, like in Daniel's game, I mean, I just think for some of the stuff, I don't know you need super hard and fast rules because it's not coming up all the time. I get it from the stance of writing a blog post and wanting to present a formula kind of thing, or at least some formulation. But really, in a home game, how often is it coming up? And if it's not coming up that often, then don't worry about it. When someone wants to make a specific thing, then you just come up with what the specific rules are for making that specific thing when you need to. In our game, we have a couple of magic users, and a while back they wanted to try to create a new spell. So I think Daniel, he just kind of, I don't know, maybe he had a rule for making spells before, but he just kind of had, and we just went through it. And you could spend, I think it was weeks, whatever they did, to spend a certain amount of weeks rolling through. It's great. Like, we didn't need a whole crafting procedure for that thing or a whole magic subsystem all written out. It's like, okay, you want to do that? So we want to do, oh, you want to do this? We'll figure it out. And you kind of figure out a time scale, to Ian's point, a time scale that works. Hey, Croco. And then you go with it. So for me, like magic items, it probably could take years if you're going to make a magic item. That to me is, because I see that as being those things being very powerful. At least once you get over, say, +1. Maybe you say +1. I always did like the kind of masterwork sort of thing. That maybe +1, it's kind of magical. It's pseudo magical. It's not super magical, but it's taken on a magical property that it's able to hit things that other things can't hit. Blah blah blah. But it's not a huge deal. And then you could have whatever more magical things could be with whatever. But yeah, you get the idea. Figure it out. And I think unless it's something where your players just can't get over crafting and it's happening every session, then maybe you want to come up with some kind of unified mechanic. But otherwise, I think just come up with them and write them down as they come along, and then maybe you'll end up with a system at the end of the day. That would be my thing. But this is fun. Thanks for sharing, Ian. We got more. What's going on the Cordius Odysseus? Oh, I'm just getting random messages. It's fine. Okay. This one from Rise Up Comus. I will post this. This is called what is it called? The Copy and Paste Manifesto. And I'll get this link in the chat. ASAPPP. All right, there we go. Croco says, I think masterwork at +1 and magical stuff, abilities, effects, not bonuses, is a nice compromise. Yeah, I think once you get over +1, though, like your +2s, +3s, I feel like then you're, because to me, it's about sort of rarity, where I can understand, you can think about, well, how many smiths could make truly, great swords, let's say, that would end up being your masterwork +1. And then it's like, well, after that, I just feel like I want it to be really, really rare. So I think +1 being so crafted so well that it basically takes on a magical quality is very cool. I don't mind the +2, +3, but I don't disagree with. That's why I like to use the magic sword tables for any kind of magic weapon. In fact, I'll even do it for magic items in general, because I just think that just gives lots of possibilities and lots of character and role-playing stuff and world-building stuff you get to work in there. All right. From, let's see, was this last Tuesday, maybe? No, a couple of weeks ago. The Copy and Paste Manifesto. I have gone on record as saying that making a mega dungeon is fun and easy. They wrote a book about it, okay? But I have good news. It's even easier than I made it out to be. I want to introduce to you an ethos for your gaming called the Copy and Paste Manifesto. Festu. All right, just as an aside, YouTube's telling me that my video, you may get some buffering or buffeting, that my stream status has gone to poor. So apologies for that if you're getting some itching or whatever going on. All right, moving on. In the introduction to That Hideous Strength, C.S. Lewis acknowledged science fiction writer Olaf Stapledon and his work. Mr. Stapledon is so rich in invention that he can well afford to lend, and I admire his invention, though not his philosophy, so much that I should feel no shame to borrow. I have liked this quote ever since I read it and have borrowed it frequently. Indeed, anytime I ever steal and riff on other people's work, I usually quote it in whole or in part. I think it is enormously self-satisfying for me to have stolen the caveat of, hey, I'm stealing this from someone else. Okay, so yeah, there was some buffering, but it's good now. Yep, and the alert has gone away. So apologies for that, whatever momentary roughness of stream. You might also have heard the frequently misattributed quote, good artists copy, great artists steal. I'm here to tell you this is absolutely how you should go about running your games. Loving the manifesto. There's no one perfect dungeon. When you run the Yellow Book of Breckwold, you think the elven ship sublevel is a little too much science fiction for your fantasy and you cut it. Cut, copy, paste manifesto doesn't have the same ring, but cutting is part of this. There's no one perfect campaign. When you run Dolmenwood, you want to start the players in Brandonsford from Blackmore of Brandonsford to give the players some immediate fairy tale hooks and quests from those NPCs. You take Brandonsford and place it into Hex 1205. There is no one perfect mega dungeon. There is only the assemblage of dungeons hand-stitched together. You take 2 dungeons from Silent Titans, Source of Victory's Last Caves of the Worm Witch, and the Nexus from Ix from Knock number 3. You connect them together thematically and with a map. There is no one perfect game. You run OSC, but you borrow the lockpicking mechanics from Errant, the starting equipment packages from Cairn, and the XP procedures from a blog post you read once. There's so much good content out there. The copy-paste manifesto tells you to use all of it. Create the perfect game for you by combining all your preferences together and cut the stuff you don't like. I kind of feel like, I guess it's not bad that someone wrote this, but do we need this written? Isn't this what everyone's been doing forever? I'm not trying to offend Rise of Comas, who I appreciate, but I kind of think this is like a manifesto that's already, they're just making something concrete, but I feel like people do all the time. Isn't that the whole sort of, if not the definition, the OSR, sort of the whole thing about it, of the borrow and take and do whatever. Anyway, let's finish it up. No bemoaning that you're never going to get a game book to the table. When do I have time to run yet another adventure? Who will possibly play this new system with me? No, shut up. That's not why you buy books. You buy them to steal from them. I myself have said that many times. I'm not going to really play this, but I'm wondering what I can take from it. Living the Manifesto. When I play tested His Majesty the Worm, my mega dungeon was a vast array of content copied and pasted together. That's why I've never shown it to anybody. I want you to do what I did. Here's how. Step 1, I'm just going to read the steps in general. Step 1, get some maps. Step 2, number the rooms. Step 3, start your dungeon reference sheet. Step 4, grab dungeons. Step 5, copy and paste. Step 6, repeat indefinitely. All right. It's cool. I'm glad I guess somebody wrote it, but it does seem to be like, well, why did we have to have this written down? Or I don't know. I don't know if this needed to be said as a blog post. It makes it feel like it's more of an original thought than it really is. And again, I'm not trying to say that he's a hack, but it's just like everybody does this all the time. But I guess if you didn't know that you should be doing this in your home game and people don't talk about it enough and you don't see enough people talking about taking this, that, and the other and smashing them together, then yes, you should absolutely do that. Croco says that most people stick to rules as written. I guess maybe it depends on what circles you run in. I feel like in the OSR subreddit and the OSR discords and so much stuff and all these different magazines that they all have alternate mechanics and alternate systems and alternate stuff to put in. And even going back to Dragon magazines from the 70s, that it would give you alternate this and alternate that and add this to your game. I suppose I feel like from the modern perspective, there's much more of, say, in 5th edition. But even then, I think if I go to 5th edition, if I were to switch to the 5th edition subreddit, start reading around, I think you'd find lots of people doing this. Think of the newbies, the poor ignorant newbies. I'm fair. That's fair, Ian. But I don't know if the newbies are reading the Rise of Comas blog. But still, I guess if for the folks who needed to be said, they have said it. So there you go. And then the last one from Ian's list, the Mad Cleric posted designing your dungeon. All right, this is also from last month. Let me write this, put the link in here. Okay. What is, people keep pinging me. Stop pinging me if you don't mean to ping me. All right. Here we go. From May 19th. Last week I wrote a lengthy treatise. Okay, so I'm skipping over that part of it. Why not design your own mega dungeon in the same spirit as Arneson and Gygax? Why not indeed? Arneson wanted his players to engage in a more wargaming experience in overland opposition to invading forces. His players just wanted to go further into dungeons, so he had to add more to the dungeon as they went. Gygax seemed more excited about the dungeon as setting. Week after week, the dungeon was intentionally the game. Each week they would arrive and continue where they left off on a dungeon floor, or they would descend to the next. I'm arguing that you should try the same in your weekly game. A village with a dungeon nearby. So many of the early D&D adventures consisted of a settlement and a dungeon. In the settlement, the PCs can rest, gather resources, gain information. And then in the dungeon, you fight, explore, gain treasure, and XP. We see this in the village of Hamlet and Keep on the Borderlands. Interestingly, the Saltmarsh series functionally did the same thing, except over a stretch of 3 adventures, each module added a dungeon. Krakos, referring back to the last point of the previous article, how do you design dungeons bottom up, rooms first and map, or top down, map first and room content? I don't have one method. I wouldn't call myself the master dungeon maker. So I think I go with a little bit of each. I find sometimes that having some kind of map will give me inspiration for the rooms, and then sometimes I have really strong ideas of the rooms that then will tell me, because of the context of the rooms, give me some idea of what shapes I want for those rooms, if that makes sense. But I think you can do both. But you can easily take a bunch of rooms and then slap them on a dungeon, say like a Dyson Logos dungeon. If you can, it'd be cool if you could search some of these dungeon resources by the number of rooms. So if you had 36 rooms, that you could find a map that had 36 rooms in it. Though I suppose if you put in some empties and some other things, you can make it work. But I don't have one method. I'd be curious for someone who's like a dungeoneering expert or dungeon design, whoever would be the self-appointed or appointed by others expert of dungeon making. It'd be interesting to get their process. It's fairly normal for home games to have a key safe zone or settlement from which players branch out. But here's the unique thing that I'm suggesting. Make a dungeon that is 1, optional, and 2, progressive. An optional dungeon, one principle of OSR play that I appreciate is respecting and inviting player agency. Part of the agency is giving players the freedom to play what they want to play. You create an environment that they engage and experience. I'm suggesting you put a dungeon in your game world that, if players want to do some dungeon delving, they can. But if they want to do something else the next session, no problem. It's not going anywhere. Now, of course, I encourage you to make it matter. If the dungeon is not cleared, perhaps nearby farms or shops get vandalized by unchecked monsters. Or perhaps as the players clear the dungeon of treasures, angered denizens come looking for them. Optional doesn't mean disconnected from the whole. It just means that you're not forcing the players into 6 weeks of delving a mega dungeon. But when they want to go back, they can. A progressive dungeon. As Arneson and Gygax players increased in level and ability, more levels were added to the dungeon. In some ways, this is not dissimilar to video game design. The original Legend of Zelda had different dungeon levels that increased in difficulty as you grew in health and abilities. Those levels just happen to be in different locations rather than stacked on top of each other. So just stacking them on top of each other in your game. So just stack them on top of each other in your game. When your players are nearing a second level, or the equivalent in a non-leveling game, lo and behold, they find a secret door or a new passage that leads downward into the depths. What I love about this idea is that you're not on the hook to design a 10-level dungeon before you can even start. Just make the levels as you need to or want to. I think one thing, though, is that I like the risk and reward of trying to go deeper than you're supposed to. Or, supposed to in quotes, right? If you've read the books that, hey, level 1 dungeon, level 1 party, level 2 dungeon, level 2 party, so on and so forth. But you also know if you're a level 1 party and you can score some loot from level 3, it's going to be worth a lot because it's just, right, everything's getting relatively stronger. So you could score a level 3 treasure hoard. That's going to be multiple times more than your level 1 treasure hoard. But of course, you got to take the risks. So I would say, yeah, maybe 10 levels is too much, but maybe 3 or 4 to start, or say 3. And then you could have where you want the next exit, the entrance to lower levels, and maybe have it be blocked. So like, there's you see stairs going down, but it's caved in. And then at some point, what if something were to clear? You could make that a whole event, like, something cleared the stairs, but not from above, from below. What was it? What are they doing? That kind of thing. So I'd kind of combo that up a little bit. But why would you ever want to design a dungeon floor? How I learned to love dungeon design. I always found the idea of designing my own dungeon daunting. I tried the random dungeon generators in the AD&D First Edition Dungeon Master's Guide and the 2014 5th Edition Dungeon Master's Guide. Both of them led to overwhelmingly large and overcomplicated dungeons. I tried just doing it from my imagination, and it began with the tyranny of the blank page and ended with a sense of not knowing how to end. This all changed with the release of Yohai Gal's Cairn 2E Warden's Guide, insanely and generously free here. Now designing dungeon levels has become my favorite solo RPG. The Warden's Guide covers a lot of dungeon design theory that is definitely worth reading. That's where you get the big ideas like 1, who built this and what was its original purpose, 2, what happened to it, and 3, who's using it now. But for this blog, I want to get down to the mechanics of building on a floor that Gal gives us in the section Build a Dungeon. Okay, so first he has you roll 6 to 20 d6 on a blank page of paper, each one of them becoming a room in the dungeon. Depending on which room number is showing on each die helps determine what's happening in the room. So Gal uses the following dungeon die drop table. 1 is a monster, 2 to 3 is lore, 4 is special, 5 or 6 is a trap. Going from there, you populate the rooms and connect the rooms using a mixture of clear, blocked, and secret paths. Croco says they planned a 20-level dungeon and rolled the connections for each level randomly. I think level 3 had a connection to level 19, which could be awesome, but also kind of scary. I don't think it's a silly idea, Croco. The only thing I want to do is I'd want to think about what's preventing the level 19 stuff from getting up there. And that can actually lead to some really interesting stuff. Maybe there's a layer of gas that's hanging out in that. Say it's I mean, it could be something. It's like a pit. It's just a smooth pit going down, and somewhere between whatever, some deep down there's like 50 feet of methane or something horrible, or it could be magical or something, and nothing from below can really get up past that. And of course, if you're going down, you better have a way to get past it. Otherwise, you're going to die to the same gases. And so that's it. Or there's something else that's blocking it. Maybe it goes into level 19 and there's one room down there that it enters into that's actually sealed. So nothing else in level 19 can get through the seal, or maybe you're coming to the back end of a secret door. But of course, then you open the secret door and yowza. So I think you can really have fun with that. And I like that stuff because that to me just helps inspiration. Well, why aren't they coming up? And then you come up with an idea. Oh, this is why they're not coming up, or this is why they're not using it, or this is whatever. So I think that's actually a cool concept. I have not done that before, just rolled to see what levels are connected to each other. Though it also might mean that you need to at least come up with a sketch thumbnail of what that level 19 is in case someone does maybe ill-advisedly put a long rope and scale down to the bottom of that pit. Croco says the connections would be at portals which have traps, puzzles guarding them, so it had to be figured out. I see. Yeah, I kind of just tend towards sort of natural stuff and maybe think about if the natural, like I said, if the natural thing leads to a conundrum, then first, can I think of anything mundane that might explain why that conundrum hasn't been solved already? And then if not, maybe there's something magical or puzzling. Ian said, who put these anti-demon runes in this innocuous sloped hallway? Exactly. Yep. Okay. And there's more. All right. So that's basically it. Hey, and Yohai has found it and responded. Awesome. And, not to pat myself on the back or anything, but I did have, let me find it. I did have in my, it's older now, but I should go back and update it. For Dungeon, what was it? What was it? Was it Dungeon 23? It was already a couple of years ago. Where was it? Oh, yeah, it was my helper for Dungeon 23. I had, did I have any pictures? Hold on, let me pull it up. Which I should update because, well, one, it's not 2023 anymore. It's still just, I think it's just pay what you want, so you can get it for free. Where did I put it? Am I going to need to download it? Because I don't know. I'm going to have to download my own thing. Oh, man, I actually published it in December of 2022. Oh, my goodness. Now, Time flies. So there you go. If you look in here, is this showing up? So if you go to my helper doc, I have all these questions. What was a dungeon originally? Was it supernatural phenomenon, a constructed creation, a combination? What is it now? How many phases of occupation? So I have all these questions. Whoops. And I kind of made it in these spread. This is the spread. So I had a bunch of stuff. I should update this, maybe something bigger, but there it is. All right, I'm gonna go. Let's go to Krister's article. And I will post this. Well, let me get into it first of all. Okay. Why play role-playing games? Games alone. Okay, so this is by Krister, posted on the Hexed Press forums at forums.hexed.press. I just plunked the link into the chat. Why play role-playing games alone? It's the obvious question, isn't it? Everybody knows that role-playing games are a group exercise. The fun comes from the interaction with other participants as well as untangling the plots of the game master. That's not something you can do alone. You can't have interpersonal interactions alone. You can't have both players and a game master if it's just you. So why on earth would you even try to engage in an inherently group-oriented activity on your own? I'm glad you asked. Let me explain. What are the most common problems of group role-playing games? Scheduling issues is the number one killer of role-playing campaigns. It's hard to find a regular time slot that everyone can commit to. This is not a problem when you play alone. When you play alone, you don't need a regular time slot. You just play whenever you want. Interpersonal drama in group games is a common complaint. It is not uncommon for people to disagree and become upset around the game table. This is not a problem when you play alone. It's just you. No drama. The other players in the group don't want to play the same game as I. There are so many games to choose from, and not everybody prefers to play the same game. This is not a problem when you play alone. When you're alone, you get to play whatever game you want without compromise or judgment. Even if all the players in the group agree on what kind of game they want to play, they still probably won't all want to play the exact same type of campaign. Even if you all agree that, say, Pathfinder is the game you want to play, you still have to agree on what kind of Pathfinder campaign you want. Hack and slash, mystery, horror, heist. This is not a problem when you play alone. Just pick whatever strikes your fancy and go. Not everybody can find a group to play with in the first place. As with all hobbies, it can be hard to find others with which to share it. This is not a problem when you play alone. The only person you need is yourself. Okay, so it might be a good idea to play alone, but how? When you play alone, or solo as it's often called, you'll be both the sole player as well as the game master. But the role of the game master is to prepare an adventure for the players in advance. So if you're both a player and the game master, isn't that a bit like reading a book you've written yourself? Where's the suspense, the sense of discovery, and plot twists if you know everything in advance? The beauty of it is you don't need to prepare the campaign in advance. You create the campaign on the fly as you play. There are 3 types of tools you can use to make this possible. First, there are solo game master tools, which provide systems and inspiration for creating sessions and entire campaigns on the fly. The most well-known of these is the Mythic Game Master Emulator, which is an entire book on the subject, but there are other simpler and free alternatives such as the one-page solo engine. Second, as always in role-playing games, you need dice to provide the element of randomness. Third, you need your imagination. Your imagination is the glue which you apply to the prompts you get from using your dice with the solo game master tools to construct an interesting adventure. I'm having a hard time understanding how this works. Can you give me an example? Certainly. This won't explain the process in detail, but at least it'll give you some idea. Your solo game master tool of choice will provide more detail and clear instructions. Let's say you've picked your game, your genre, and you've rolled up your character. Now you need something for this character to do. You need a quest to undertake. So you turn to your solo game master tool of choice for help. Such tools often provide random tables with action and subject or similar headings. Roll on the action table, you get the result investigate, and the subject table gives you enemies. Okay, investigate enemies. This is where your imagination comes in. As the game master, you now have to come up with who these enemies are. If you need further inspiration, lots of solo game master tools provide tables for this too. Using such tables to get more information on who these enemies might be. Let's say you get the words clandestine and alliance. Oh, in other words, your enemy is a clandestine alliance, a secret society perhaps, a cult. You decide. Then you start playing. You make your way towards the first plot point, and you realize this is where you as a player would need to ask the game master something. For example, do I manage to make my way through the dark alley without getting ambushed? Then you could turn to what's known as a yes or no oracle in your solo game master tool. A simple D6 one works as follows. 1 is yes, and it's even better than you think. 2 is yes. 3 is yes, but it's not as good as you think. 4 is no, but it's not as bad as you think. 5 is no, 6 is no, and it's worse than you think. This is a simple way of rolling a 6-sided die and getting a somewhat nuanced yes or no answer. Again, use your imagination to interpret the results. Hold on 1 second. Let me write this message. People are chasing me down. Okay. This is a simple way of rolling a 6-sided die and getting somewhat nuanced yes or no answer. Again, okay, I said that. Okay, sorry about that. All right, other useful tools. Apart from the solo Game Master tools, there are other tools that are not necessarily only for solo play, but are especially useful for solo players. NPC generators can be used to generate interesting NPCs to interact with. Random dungeon generators are also popular. Random settlement generators can be used to generate anything from a hamlet to a full city. Random point of interest generators can generate non-settlement locations. Great if you want to make travel interesting or if you're simply playing a hex crawl. Additionally, let me tell you an open secret. Making your own generators is fun and really not that hard, and not really that hard. The downsides to playing solo, when a group works well, it can be incredibly rewarding. That's not something you can really replicate when playing alone. Playing on your own is slower paced. Since you're not preparing sessions in advance, if your quest happens to take you to a dungeon, you'll probably have to generate on the fly, which will slow your game down. Sometimes you just want to be a player and sit down and play without having to generate any content on your own. In that case, a group game is probably best. Conclusion. Sometimes playing alone is the best, or the only choice available. Rolling on random tables and solo Game Master tools can give you inspiration, which you use your imagination to interpret on the fly at the table. This makes it possible to be surprised at what comes up at the table without having to involve anyone else. There are lots of tools available to enhance your game, and it's not that complicated to make your own if you want. Obviously, both group and solo play have their place. We all have to find the style that best suits our needs. Whew. All right, Krister. Well, I mean, I have no comment. That's a great write-up, a great intro for anyone who's interested but not quite sure what solo play means. Yeah, that's really, really good, as Croco noted. Croco also says, on the fly is the way to do it. Using given material and then slowly adding your own stuff is very satisfying once you get used to it. Yes. I think that hex crawling on the fly, it's doable. There are some complications. There's probably some ways you could probably work around some of the things. I know that what can happen is water can be particularly deviling, flowing water, because you can end up in a couple of hexes and then realize that either you're not ever adding water in because water has to come and go somewhere, or you get somewhere and realize that water is supposed to come somewhere and it can't. There's some different ways to handle it. I know I've looked at it in some different ways. I think, what was that board game, Source of the Nile? Had some interesting things. There are probably some ways you need to work. And there might be some other things like that. Just water always comes up when you're hex crawling, or if you're trying to do each hex at a time, because one of those things that you kind of, it feels like you need to know the river's there. That doesn't quite work when you're doing it. You kind of need to know the overall flow, at least generally. But there might be other things like that too. And there are some workarounds, but that's kind of a little bit tough. But other than that, yeah, I think doing it on the fly is most fun. But yes, it is. It's a different game, different types of satisfaction, different challenges, and a different kind of fun. But it is fun, and as Krister mentions, you may not have access to a gaming group, and solo is a way to get your gaming on when all other choices have failed. And even if you have other people to game with, it's fun to play sometimes by yourself, as they say. Well, thanks so much for posting that, Krister. I can't believe did you have that already printed up, or did you just wrote that out? Either way, it is excellent. Okay, Croco's got one, but I gotta jet, because I actually have to jump on a call that I'd forgotten about. So I'll save that for next one, Croco. I will probably do another one of these sometime later in the week, just to make up, I feel like, for ones I've missed. So I will put a pin in that one till the next one. I'll be back at it. I don't know. I'm not sure if here or on the other channel, because I got some stuff I got to do that probably makes more sense for behind the scenes. But we'll save that for another day. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on, and I'll talk to you later. Bye now.